This is your space to listen, learn, and connect. Talk with Blaq. Your space to express yourself. Delve into meaningful conversations. Talk with Blaq.
Coming up today on Talk with Blaq, we discuss and we talk about a very important subject to me. And what is the subject? This is a subject on abuse of men. It's not spoken about a lot. And in most corners, if you raise it as a man, you will be laughed at. So today, me and my guests will get into why it happens, how it happens, and how it is ignored. And with that said, we do not take away that South Africa is a very violent country. And in that violence, women and children suffer the most. And when we discuss the things that we're going to be discussing here, we're in no way saying that that is less or this is more. We're just saying, please, hear us out. We are men, we are part of this society, and we just want to exist as part of the society and acknowledge that for once in our lives, we actually want to talk. So, brothers, let's talk. Here's a video that will put a light on why we are here today.
A lot of men are getting emotionally abused in their marriages and relationships and don't even realize it. See, women have their tendencies and their ways to abuse men in the form of emotion, right? Something that's not physical, but it's just as worse, if not worse, than physical abuse. A lot of men don't even realize it. It's because society has normalized women emotionally abusing men. They've normalized it to the point to where so many men are oblivious and ignorant to the fact that it's even happening to them. It takes guys who are more woke, like myself, to explain this to men so y'all can get woke and wake up and help out y'all self.
Okay, gentlemen, now that the ice has been broken, that was something. What do you think, Biggs?
Yeah, well, I think it points, in fact, to the prevalence of this phenomenon throughout the globe. And obviously, South Africa is not an exception in as far as this challenge is concerned. But I guess as we continue with our conversation here, we're going to look at different aspects as well as interventions that can be made in order to mitigate such challenges.
Jimmy J.
Yo, Blaq. I think, as men, we've been burdened by the fact that we are men, you know what I mean? So we carry that,
Don't cry.
men don't cry. The society has made it a point that, it's either that or nothing, you know what I mean? So abuse is there, and we see it in our everyday life, man.
Yeah.
So I think the brothers today will need to speak to them and make them understand, again, being a gentleman and being abused, you know what I mean? So I think, let's dive into that.
And there's a very fine line to that, eh?
Yeah.
Gentleman, and then allowing somebody to walk over you.
Exactly.
That's a very nice point, Jay.
Yeah, definitely. So I think let's talk to the brothers. Let's unpack it. And like Biggie said, it's something that, it's been happening.
It's been happening.
Yeah.
Tumelo, welcome. What's up?
Thank you, Blaq. I think just looking at the video, I just want to highlight or note looking at what typically happens in the townships and even in the suburbs. You find that there is a level of unawareness that a man has been abused. Just to put it out there, a typical example would be a man would prefer to go and watch soccer at maybe a tavern or at your news cafes or those establishments. So I'm saying he would prefer to leave his 60-inch TV at home, leave the comfort of his home, and go watch soccer in the crate on a 15-inch TV, very small, and leave his comfort home. So that, I think, is a strong indicator of
why is that?
Possibly the man is not at peace, and
not at peace,
which means there's definitely something happening at home which is not sitting well with him. I think there's a strong indicator of possibly there is those kind of abuses that we are really as men not aware of. It's just a small example, but a true indicator.
Okay. You heard it right here on Talk with Blaq. So, but ladies and gentlemen, you know that I don't walk alone. I know that I have not yet introduced my friends. So, with that said, Mr. Biggs.
Thank you so much.
How you doing, big brother?
Quite exciting, and looking forward to the engagement today.
Okay. And another regular, Jimmy J.
I almost thought you forgot my name.
Why would I forget you? I've known you for 15 years.
Okay, we know I'm always excited when we speak to the brothers. So, brothers, today is another yet episode of us unpacking important issues that affect us.
Okay, and our special guest. I've introduced your name, and I've said a bit, and like they know you just a little bit. But what I'd like you to say is tell us who you are, and why are we talking to you today, and what's so special about your organization. And I know that you are Tumelo. You represent an organization called
We Are Fathers, We Are Parents. Thank you. My name is Tumelo Mokoena, as already mentioned.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am the secretary of an organization called We Are Fathers, We Are Parents.
Mm-hmm.
How the organization was founded, it was founded by a gentleman by the name of Castro Musinyedi in July 2019. Castro is the chairperson who went through a not so nice experience with the law. I think a person on the street would assume that, in his case, what happened was the mother of his child passed away. He was very active in raising the child and being there.
Mm-hmm.
Subsequent to her passing away, the child was given to the grandparents of the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think a typical person on the street would assume that in that instance, it would be automatic that the child would be given to
the father,
to the biological father.
Yes.
So I think that's where Castro noted the challenges with the law in terms of being an unmarried father.
Yes.
An unmarried father is treated differently with regards to being given parental rights and responsibilities. So that prompted him to
form the organization,
but also to assist men who are going through similar challenges. Upon forming the organization, I myself joined in 2021.
Yes, sir.
But we do not only deal with access to children. I think the scope has been broadened to deal with more issues such as the topic we're dealing with today, being abuse of men.
Yes, sir.
Being a whole lot of other issues, assisting men in generally being aware of their rights.
So it looks like we're going to have a lot to talk about. You just unpacked a whole lot of scope. But with that said, let me welcome you to the conversation.
Thank you.
All right. Brothers, let's talk. It is Talk with Blaq.
This is your space to listen, learn, and connect. Talk with Blaq. Your space to express yourself. Delve into meaningful conversations. Talk with Blaq.
Okay, now that we're talking, brothers, I got a question. All right, my question now is, Jimmy, have you been abused? Do you know what abuse is? Or how are you aware that you're being abused? Or where have you experienced abuse as a man?
Well, first of all, we get more abused, I think, emotionally, and by saying that, you don't only see that maybe at home or anywhere. You also pick these things up in a place of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll make an example for you. Let's say when we hired me and the female counterpart to do the same job, and our job requires us to carry boxes and put them there. But just because I'm the man there, you should be saying, no, can you please help me to put these boxes there? But this is our job, That's the first level of abuse. And obviously, another abuse that I feel, Chris, that is happening all the time is the e-wallet thing. So
now that you're talking about that abuse, right?
Yeah.
There's a joke I'm forced to remember.
Yeah.
The Titanic, Bill Burr talks about why more men died on the Titanic is when everybody was saying women and children on the boat.
On the boat field.
The guys were busy packing up the stage and cable.
Yeah, so basically, you're right. Women and children given first preference. And like to your point again, that you mentioned earlier, and that we're not saying women and children are not being abused. I mean, highly they are. But with men, we've come to terms with it. Like it's the way of doing things to be abused, and
and some of them have become normalized.
Exactly. When you point it out, they'll be like, we should see. Yeah, you know what I mean? Man up. And then when you man up, you are pushed to hide your emotions, to speak out. You just go with the flow, die inside. So it's just a whole lot of things to unpack. You know what I mean?
There's so much.
So much.
Biggs?
Yeah. There's a lot of forms of abuse that is quite prevalent out there. And once again, I need to emphasize that we are not actually engaging in these conversations for the simple reason that we want to squash off the abuse perpetrated against children and women. But obviously we feel that we need also to give spotlight to the abuse which is meted out to men out there, because it has been swept under the carpet. It has been silenced because men out there are discreet. They don't come out, they don't speak. And if they speak, obviously they feel that they will be ridiculed. And apparently in South Africa, there's a high percentage of such abuses that are underreported to the law enforcement agencies for the fear of men being ridiculed, being laughed off, or being chased away and say, go back and solve your problem. But coming back to the issue at hand, I think we need to go deeper to these issues and talk about them. As I've mentioned, that there's a lot of abuse out there. We get abused in different forms. Teboko mentioned that you find a man leaving his comfort home to go out and seek solace and happiness, avoiding being screamed, being yelled at, being told, don't do this, do that. Go out and mow the grass. Go out and drive and buy this.
That's your job as a man.
But obviously, you're going to be doing that at your convenient time, not when you are told. You cannot be told at work what to do and be told in your own home as well, because you always prioritize. When that time comes, it's when you're going to mow the grass. So the point is, from time to time, we get abused as men. We get abused in many shapes and different forms.
No, but you see, Jay, let's not take his experience. That's his experience, and
exactly.
he feels passionate. I can see that. I can see in your faces, like Lando, hoorah.
No, I hear him, Blaq. Well, but Chris, some things are your duties. Go and lower them all.
I am not abdicating that responsibility, but I cannot have someone.
The crash.
Yeah, I cannot have someone prescribing for me. Getting up in the morning, and already there's a prescription on the table. These are your duties today. While from Monday to Friday, I get such subscriptions where I'm employed and come to my house, and then I also get subscription. Yes, I'm duty bound to mow the grass, I know, but at my convenient time, not when I'm told to do so. Indeed.
Do me. Define to us, according to the Act, what is abuse?
Yes, Blaq, I think the Domestic Violence Act is pretty clear on what constitutes abuse. It has many different categories. The first and obvious one being physical abuse, which would be when someone attacks you, slaps you, and pushes you around.
Yes.
The second category would be emotional and psychological abuse. Now, I think this part is where most men fall into. It's also very difficult to diagnose because it happens subtly, and men do not generally are not aware when it does happen. Emotional and psychological is also very broad, as I mentioned. It would be things that are done indirectly against you to abuse you.
That's like what Biggie was saying with the fact that he knows his duties, but because now somebody else wants it now, it must happen now.
Definitely, and I think it's the manner in which it's been done. But over and above that, I think it also goes into certain manipulations that happen, which someone is not really aware that they've been abused.
That's a nice word, manipulation. Tell me what's going on there.
I think with regards to manipulation, remember, sometimes we can get into an instance where you use emotional blackmail, for instance. I mean, certain things are said in the household, window that you've got a household. They look at next door, but can you see what that man is doing? He's buying this and this and this. So that is manipulation, which is not easy to see, and the pressure that it creates. I mean, you can only do what you can afford as a man. So I think those are some things that we don't really see, but they do happen, and it comes within that part of emotional and psychological. But again, going on to the third category, the Domestic Violence Act talks about financial abuse as well. Financial.
That's the one thing I mentioned. And I wasn't joking, guys. This thing is real.
It's real.
Someone would just say, you know what, I need 3,000 fast. Even if she said slow, you don't have,
Definitely.
So financial is big.
It's big. But remember how the world views financial abuse, or the true definition is when you are restricting financial resources from the other partner. So that is the definition of it. But to see the implementation of it is almost the man who is always denying financial resources. But again, if you look at, the nature of marriages, the nature of relationships is to say spouses have a reciprocal duty of support, even financial. Indota must. So you find that how things are implemented is that it always falls on the men to provide those financial resources. The moment you demand is a harsh word or a hard word, but the moment you request the same from your partner, then all of a sudden we don't talk of equality. So those are some of the definitions of abuse. The list is not exhaustive. I think we as a movement feel as though there could be more that's added to the act to define abuse.
Yes.
With the work that we do on the streets, we find that instances such as denying a father access to a child, I think that should be classified as abuse because it deals with you emotionally, psychologically. But I think that should really be put into the act. As well, issues such as a term called parental alienation, where
speaking mischief. Explain that.
Come to us standard.
So parental alienation is a concept that is out there, normally in the first world countries. In South Africa, it's not widely known, particularly due to not much research being done on it. If I was to explain it, is in an instance where, let us say, two parents have separated, and the child is living with one parent. The other parent that's living with the child tends to talk negatively about the other parent. Now that creates.
I'm guilty of that.
It's wrong, and I must also speak against it. What it does is it creates a certain idea in the child's mind to say the other parent is either not doing their duties, or they're not a good person, or they're evil, and so we as a movement, we feel that parental alienation should be specifically put to say it's child abuse, because what you're doing is you are manipulating this child to hate the other parent. In fact, you are actually abusing the child. So that's why we as an organization, we say this should be specifically put in the Domestic Violence Act to say in instances where parental alienation is detected, then there should be criminal sanctions. Number one, it should be defined as abuse. Then it should be taken as a criminal act. So that is the last category which I feel.
Hold on. Are we not running the risk of just what you call importing laws from overseas that are not African? Because not everything that comes from, because you mentioned that this is new in South Africa. It's mostly done. Are we not in a risk of importing? Because I'm thinking there are so many things that we can learn from our own spirituality and our own cultural. So do you not see us in a long run,
in the end, and also, if just to interject, dynamics are not the same from abroad vis-a-vis South Africa. If you look at in our communities, dynamics are completely different. Yeah,
but isn't the laws put there to protect? Even if dynamics are not the same, but if you put a law saying that abuse is abuse, whether overseas or local, is the same.
Yeah.
What are we saying?
I would like to also agree on that. I think maybe let me go back to the drawing board to say the problem that men face, the problem of abuse, it's worldwide. It's not only in South Africa, it's worldwide.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you would note the famous case internationally of Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp. Sorry.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's in that case.
So I think it's something that shows that this problem is international. So I don't think we are adopting a foreign concept, because internationally we are all human beings. Number one, we exist the same. Women, men, there's relationship, there's children born of the relationship. So I think internationally what happens is also happening in South Africa. So again, what is derived from the concept of parental alienation has been thoroughly researched by experts that side. Now, international law, nothing prohibits us from taking that research into account in South Africa. We do see gaps in terms of our own experts, social workers, psychologists not being up to par with the international standards. So I don't think it's a foreign concept that should not be taken into account in South Africa.
But just to come in there, Tumelo, when you speak of parental alienation, sometimes what I've picked up, it happens even though both parents are still together. The child will come and Mama will probably say, "Hey, Babe Namazu, useless, blah blah blah." What do you make of that situation?
Definitely, it does happen within the household, and it comes back to the earlier discussion of not being aware. Now we've put a name to it to say, actually, this behavior is called parental alienation.
Yeah.
We've identified it. We are aware.
Okay.
And when it happens, then you can act on it, because at the end of the day, it's abuse.
Okay.
Number one, it's abuse on the alienated parent, because then the child acts negatively towards them. Long-term effects, they don't have a relationship with the child that is good.
Yeah.
It's abuse to you, but it's more harmful to the child, because now you are denying a child of a father or a mother. So it's abuse on those two levels.
All right. Now,
on the same flip of the coin, with what Jimmy has actually illustrated right now, it brings back to mind something I came across or I read about, whereby both parents are employed, are working, but the father actually he contributes more than the other spouse. And when kids are requesting for stuff to buy, because the money is being managed by this other spouse, the impression created there, it will be more of like it is the spouse actually who's actually putting out money out there for such gifts or whatever necessities, instead of this woman giving credit to the father. Will I deem that as an abuse?
that's a nice one, because it goes to my next question. What are the different types of abuse? Now let's unpack how do we as men say bias abuse? What is that? How does it look like? Do we have a picture? Do we have a sound? Do we have, do we have how it looks? What do you?
Yes, I think for me, speaking on the Domestic Violence Act, it is pretty clear in terms of what is abuse. I'll speak on 3 categories.
Yes.
The first and the obvious one is physical abuse. That's hitting, that's pushing.
Okay.
That also goes deeper into issues such as rape and those kind of crimes.
You mentioned rape for men, that is.
Definitely. I think male rape is also one of the abuses that is a hidden crime or is not spoken about, is underreported. But definitely male rape does happen. Again, I think for me is to re-emphasize that when we as men talk about these issues, we are not taking away the severity of violence against women and children. But I think we're just acknowledging that
it happens to us too.
Male rape happens, but also on a broader scale, even the LGBTQI community.
Yes.
These are people that are actually getting raped. And I think as a society, we don't take that seriously. So all of those fall within the categories of physical abuse. Then we move on to emotional and psychological abuse.
Okay.
I think we've also touched earlier on it in terms of these are the types of abuses that are subtle and sometimes as men, we're not really aware of them. Emotional, and myself personally, I believe issues of parental alienation, for example, fall within the category of emotional and psychological, because the moment a child is being kept away from you, it does something to emotions.
Do you think laws around domestic violence and abuse, are they gender neutral, or what's the story there?
Look, I think in terms of how legislation is drafted, more specifically the Domestic Violence Act, it says it's gender-based violence. So I think on the face of it, it's designed to protect both genders. What we have a problem with, I myself personally, as well as our organization, is the implementation thereof. Because you note that within the implementation, I think they might as well just call it girl-based violence, because how the system is reacting is that they take men as more the perpetrators and women the victims. Again, I'm not undermining the pandemic of violence against women and children, but I'm also saying that at implementation level, it's almost like the male is forgotten as a victim. So I think our problem is the implementation of the laws. You find that if a male was to report an incidence of abuse, they're treated differently by the system. This is the police, the justice system. They are more laughed at. But if a woman is to report the case of domestic violence, you find 4 trucks, immediate action.
AK-47s.
Definitely. And I think that is where the biasness comes in actioning incidents of gender-based violence. Now, what we're seeing is that even the courts, I think they have a different viewpoint in terms of whether it's a male or a female. Now, another trend that we're also seeing as an organization and the work that we do is that actually now women recognize that the law protects them more, and in certain instances, they do manipulate it.
I'm a Vuso. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, I'm a Vuso. That, guys.
Yeah.
And to speak on what you're saying, Tums, I know you guys were listening to the Sona. You know, even the president himself always say we need to protect our women and children of South Africa.
And so we must. But where do we fit into this? That's the question.
Yeah, so which means it's like we don't exist as men. But yes, we do want to protect our women and children. But, the more they emphasize of women and children and excluding a man, that creates a problem in its own,
Okay, gentlemen, we've spoken about the laws now, right? Right?
Yes.
You've given us the whole law, what it does. All right? And the guys have come in with what they know. Now, my question is, now that we know what the law says, where does provocation come into this whole picture? Provocation, and when you are provoked, where do you go after that? Or what goes on? Does the law recognize that?
Look, I think on my side, I'm not a legal expert, but I am studying law at the moment. I'm doing my third year law.
You are a legal lead. You are in there.
So I think with my limited knowledge of law is that provocation, I think in other countries or maybe in the past could be used as a defense.
Okay.
Again, I want to reiterate that I'm in no way saying gender-based violence is okay, but provocation is more of a defense rather than an abuse. What we're seeing as a movement is that, and now I'm speaking on actual cases that happen within our organization, that it comes back to the earlier discussion of maybe a woman knowing that the law will protect them. Mm-hmm. So in certain instances, they'll deliberately provocate you so that you hit them. So the moment you hit them, then they report, then there's a protection order or a criminal case. So that sometimes it does happen. We've seen it in the movement. And what we're seeing is that these things normally happen in cases where maybe people are splitting, they're divorcing, they're separating, and maybe it's to get the men out of the house. I've personally been through that, but I'll speak to it more. So provocation, it happens. Sometimes, unfortunately, a person is provoked and they react. Then we have a case of gender-based violence. Mm-hmm. So I think those are also issues that need to be looked at in detail in terms of...
When these things happen, this abuse happens, right, guys? Do we ever report these cases? What are the records saying in reporting of men abuse? Are they statistics?
Yes, definitely. Again, let me start off by looking at, as a country, South Africa, where do we get our statistics? We get it from Statistics SA, right? Now, Statistics SA, there's only 3 sources of statistics or where they get the statistics from. Mm-hmm. It's number 1, the South African Police Service. Number 2 is the judiciary, the courts, and then the Department of Correctional Services, right? So what happens is...
And I'm sure health is also there.
No, because
they don't take those.
No, it's only those 3 sources according to legally.
Okay.
So what happens is, if you look at SAPS, what do? They look at the number of cases that have been reported. Okay. And it's creating a picture that it's more women that have been that are reporting issues of gender-based violence. Yeah. Now, again, myself personally, I would say that, although it does indicate that majority of women are the victims of gender-based violence, I believe that, and I would boldly say that actually that is not true. Why? Because I would argue that, in fact, we experience gender-based violence on an equal footing.
Yeah, equally, yeah.
So women do perpetrate gender-based violence against men. Within the legal framework, there is something called the dark cloud of crime. So the dark cloud of crime is all instances which are not reported to SAPS, to the courts, and we find that this is where men fall within. They go through issues and then they don't report it for a number of reasons. Stigma attached, victimization by police, being laughed at by police. So we find that dark cloud is not reported within these statistics.
No.
And then we say, as a country, the majority of cases is against women.
Okay.
So I believe if we are serious as a country, we need to drill deep into the dark cloud and report on these cases.
And we need to ask why.
Why
is it happening?
Yes.
Biggs, Lendo, before we started this, you had a question.
Yeah. My question was based on the fact, because I want to check with you if perhaps you guys have conducted research on finding out as to whether such abusive acts were there back in the days, or this is just a trend which is emerging now. Is it emerging, being brought to our attention because of what we have in front of us in terms of technology, your social media and so forth? But this trend has actually existed long time ago. So if it has existed long time ago, what is the difference now? And how was it actually mitigated against it then, if there was any of such back in the days?
Yes, I think, remember, we are now as a country under the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which was implemented 1996. So as and when the Constitution was implemented, then we went towards the narrative of equality. And that is where now society became conscious of the fact that we are actually equal and we need to speak out. So our organization, unfortunately, we are self-funded. We fund ourselves out of pocket. We do have our day jobs where we have day jobs. So this is something that we do in our spare time with our own resources. So we don't have any researchers per se.
Okay.
But what we're seeing out there is that more and more research is coming out. For instance, the Commission of Gender Equality released a report. It's called When Relations Disentangle. Now, that addresses that historically these domestic violence cases have been happening, but it also drills deep into why it's not being reported by males. So, unfortunately, this topic of domestic violence against men is unpopular.
Biggs, we spoke earlier on about provocation. Dumi did a good job on breaking it down for us.
Yes.
But I feel you cheated on me, man.
How's
we had this conversation off camera, like when we were at home, dealing with it. And you told me a passionate story. I don't feel like you went into it hard enough,
Oh, well,
What happened, Biggs?
that story
Biggs, what happened?
evokes some emotions. In fact, it's a heart-wrenching story. I can relate to provocation. I used to date this woman, and she was working for a certain financial institution. I may not mention. And constantly, because of her work, she was actually experiencing challenges on daily basis on meeting her targets as she was working on targets, and she would constantly take out that on me. And then from time to time, she would call me a fat idiot, which is the name I could not take kindly, but I did not react at that time.
That's provocation right there.
Yeah,
It went ahead until I felt I couldn't take it anymore. And then I drove because she called as I pick her calls, and then she went on to insult me, fat idiot, this and that and that and that. And mind you, this woman was under my roof. She was under my care. I would make sure she has petrol in her car. I would make sure in the morning when she gets up, I prepare her clothes, assist her while she's taking a bath because she was constantly late.
Yeah,
And then I drove over to her workplace, and the argument and the fights continued, and then we fought. She broke my car window.
No one's going.
Yeah, the car window. She broke the car window, and then she drove off, went back to my place because she had a key, and she took out all the clothes from the wardrobe and tear them off, all of them. And she broke my TV as well. I remember the plasmas were an in thing at that time. She broke the TV. But guess what? In all of that, I did not take any action until I go to the police station. And one police officer said to me, there is this community newspaper that we buy every week. See, I don't buy that newspaper, but from what I saw, the rage in this woman, I'm going to start buying African Report just to check if you're in there, because this is where they publicize all the dead people in the African Reporter.
So he assumed
I might be killed.
You might be killed
if I don't separate myself from this lady.
That's a nice. Look, you didn't. Your experience wasn't nice. It was terrible.
Yes,
but it's a nice one because it takes me back to me. Then I'm going to ask you to get in deeper into what happens when men go and report in police stations, because he went to the police station, and the police, instead of helping him, they said, we want to see you in the newspapers.
Yeah.
So they told me.
Yes. Unfortunately, this is how the system reacts when men report domestic violence. I'll also go into my own personal story because it's closer to home.
One best juice.
With my personal experience is that I was staying with the mother of my child. December 2018, she decided to quit the relationship and take the child and go away, which we accepted. In between, after that, we tried family interventions so that we reunite. She did commit to coming back, however, she didn't. I think after about 9 months, that's when now she came back forcefully so. And the one time I found her coming in, having packed her bags in, and she'd moved on back in without discussing with me and everything.
Wow.
So I think within that, then there was an incident whereby I was getting calls from a friend. She started to react, became angry, and started assaulting me. In that instance, she locked me in the house, and I had to call someone to call the police. Now,
so you were a prisoner in your own house.
I was restricted movement. I was a prisoner in my own home. She hid the keys, and the police did arrive around midnight.
So what time did this whole ordeal start?
This whole ordeal started from around 9 o'clock.
In the evening?
And in the evening.
Okay.
And it went on, and I did not react because I know the consequences if I was to react. Yeah. But when the police came, this is where now answering the issue of how do police react. When the police came, number one, I told them to break the door because she had hidden the key. They said to me, no, we can't break the door as law officers. We're not allowed, which is the law. I respect that. So I had to break my own door to get out. Now, upon getting out, now I'm free. I'm happy that actually he has help. What I did is then I asked the police to arrest her because she's been assaulting me. And the response from the police was that they asked me, have you been drinking? I said, yes, I've had 1 or 2 castle lights. And then they said, no, because you have been drinking, you cannot open a case. Right.
Wow.
Now, here's the contradiction. Can I maybe go on before? So here's the contradiction of the story. Now, a police officer is recommending me. He's saying I've had 2 drinks, right?
Yeah.
His solution to the problem is, can you take your car, pack your bags, drive out, and then come back later when she's calmer?
Yeah.
That is from a police officer.
Are you serious?
A law enforcement officer who's suggesting that in that state I should go out of the house. So I think for me, that is my experience with the law. Had it been the other way around, if I was the one assaulting her, I'm pretty sure I would have been loaded into the police station.
Let's go. I mean, like, we're running out of time now. The finances in this whole thing, how does it work? I mean, like how? Because I know we're abused financially also. So we've got at least 1 minute to talk about this. How do finances go into this abuse thing? Jimmy, have you ever had financial abuse in any relationship? It doesn't have, I know you have a beautiful marriage now, but I'm talking about in...
Yeah, man. I mean, you are, like, if we were to go to a restaurant, you would be expected to pay as a man, as a brother. So
uncommunicated expectations.
And sometimes I was listening to this guy telling me that he once dated this lady. The lady was financially stable, but he was not. So they'll go to these restaurants, and the poor guy, he was telling me at the time he only had like $300. And the lady called a friend. They had like a feast full meal, and then he was expected to pay, and he didn't have that money. When he failed to pay, and then was telling his father, you know what, actually, Uncle Sharp, he was taken like a useless guy.
Biggs?
Yeah, I don't want to go back. I did mention that that lady who put me in that awkward situation. Actually,
TV. How much?
Yes, I was financially bailing her out. In fact, she was under my care constantly most of the time because she was really rated based on commission from time to time. So I feel that constantly I was actually subjected to financial abuse. But at the same time, I wanted to ask, but although there's no more time, how much of a mental impact in terms of health-wise does this have to all men who are going through all this abuse?
Okay,
because some men, they go to an extent of taking their own lives.
Let me go into this one. I was hospitalized 3 times because of an abusive spouse. The first time I ever went into hospital was with depression because of an abusive spouse. So I know, I know how bad this roller coaster can get. But Tumi, you can give us your...
Yes, definitely. I think one of the issues that we deal with or that we're seeing as an organization is that if you look at the research around the world, research will show you that South Africa is actually amongst the top 10 of people committing suicide. But again, if you drill deeper into those statistics, you'll see that in between those statistics is actually men with the highest rates as opposed to women of suicide.
Jesus.
I mean, just look at the media, for example. It's there for us to see. You look at Hip Hop Panzola, you look at Patrick Shai, you look at Ricky Ross. Those are people, men that have committed suicide. But as a society, we don't see it as a problem. We just pass it off as a mental issue. But now I think where we're failing is that we're not addressing why is it that men are committing suicide. And unfortunately, as a society, it's not a popular topic to talk on men issues, but I feel as though we need to drill deep into what are the root causes. What is it that men are going through? But I would beg to argue that men do not receive support. They go to the police station, they're laughed at, they're told about such instances on the newspaper. In my case, I was told to drive out and come back when she's calmer. So I believe society has created, or men do not have avenues where they can report crime, they can talk, and the only solution is for you to just take that rope and hang yourself, unfortunately.
Now that, you see, you've mentioned that men don't have outlets, but I know that we have a few brothers out there who we can count on. One of them is yourself. So tell me more, just a small wrap-up about your organization and what kind of help do you give to brothers?
Definitely. As I said, we've got a chairperson by the name of Castro Musunyedi. He's the chairperson. What we offer is we are a NGO, self-funded. We work from pocket.
And does government, just a bit, does government offer any help? Do you have any private sector help? Or it's just you personally?
Unfortunately not, because I think our issues are not
mainstream,
faced, popular out there. So unfortunately, when you approach government institutions, they wouldn't easily fund you, as opposed to if you're saying you want to fund women and children, and so unfortunately our issues are shunned upon. So we don't get funding. We do have a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Social Development. However, they have not actioned their part. But we are seeing that there are certain Chapter 9 institutions which are willing to partner with us. For instance, the Commission for Gender Equality, they have ran certain workshops with us to empower men around what are their rights. But what we offer is support, just to talk. Sometimes is really important to say, here's a number, it's here.
Talking about numbers, what are your socials?
In that, you can find us on We Are Fathers, We Are Parents on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We Are Fathers, We Are Parents. You'll find us there. So we provide that support if you need to talk. Unfortunately, we're not lawyers, but we do point you into the right direction in terms of legal assistance that you may require. But we also give support in terms of, if you're going through this, where do you report? Where do you go to? Because sometimes, as you said, Biggie, yourself, you have not reported it, which again is a problem, because that is showing the stats to be skewed. You know what I mean? So I think we need to conscientize men to start reporting these cases, because it will paint a clearer picture of GBV in this country.
All right. Jimmy J, give us our socials.
The brothers can join the conversations on TikTok, Instagram, and also Facebook. It's Talk with Blaq on all social platforms. Those are the socials, Blaq.
There you have it. We've had a long discussion about how men are affected by abuse, and we've had fruitful discussions. With Tumelo, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting
Jimmy J.
Yeah.
Mr. Biggs.
Yes, sir.
Another session of Talk with Blaq. Let's meet the next time. Je m'appelle Blaq.
This is your space to listen, learn, and connect. Talk with Blaq. Your space to express yourself. Delve into meaningful conversations. Talk with Blaq.